All right, we are live. Welcome, everybody, to the Gunner Technology Livestream, a weekly tech talk for non-techies and techies alike. I'm your host, Derry Merkins. With me is CEO of Gunner Technology, Cody Swan. What's going on, Cody?
Just another day in paradise. It's not a polar vortex here today, but it's a rainy day, I'll tell you that.
It is nice living in locations where it's never a polar vortex.
I gotta say. Like 70 below? Yeah, that's just miserable. Like, and they were saying if you're outside, try not to talk. So,
like, is that advice being given? Is something happening around the country?
Yeah. I guess like there's in the Midwest, it's like the lowest temperature it's been in like decades or longer. They were saying it was one day this week it was colder in Chicago than it was in Antarctica, and yeah, that's the advice they were saying is like try to avoid talking when you're outdoors or opening your mouth. Like, jeez.
My goodness.
Yeah,
I guess that's good news for socially awkward people.
Yeah, I was saying, man, they should just continue that advice for all time. So people just don't talk when they're outside. Like just be safe and don't talk ever.
You shouldn't talk. It's like 40 degrees outside. Just be safe. Just be safe. Wow, I didn't know that. I'll have to not look into that. But that's interesting that it's super cold across the country. Sucks to be the rest of the country. But we can dive right in today. We got our winner of the Country Store giveaway. Country Store Outfitters is a lifestyle brand for anyone who loves the outdoors. You can visit them at countrystoreoutfitters.com. Perfect gear for the minus 70 Chicago weather. Hop on Country Store Outfitters Facebook page, sign up for the giveaway. The winner this week is Bill V from Newport News, Virginia. So, Bill, you got a copy, or you've got a Country Store hat heading your way along with copies of all of our ebooks, our massive and ever-growing library of ebooks. So enjoy those. And if you didn't win this week, go ahead and hop on our Facebook page and sign up for the Country Store giveaway. And while you're on our Facebook page, make sure to answer our question of the week, which this past week, what was that question, Cody?
Have you given up on your 2019 resolution, which we're about 50, just over 51% of our audience said they had.
Had given up,
which is I'm surprised it's not higher. I think we just have a bunch of liars listening to this program.
That's harsh, but probably true. It's funny. It's tough to make resolutions for an entire year. It's better to make resolutions for like a 90 or 120 day period, because at that point, if you can stick something for that long, you're basically going to stick to it for the entire year. I think people get overwhelmed with the thought of doing something for an entire year.
Oh yeah, I think people get overwhelmed with the thought of doing something for like a week,
for a day.
Like, look, they can't even go without talking when they're outside in like sub 70 degree temperatures.
And it's so unhealthy to talk outside.
We're gonna drive that point home.
For all of our viewers in Chicago, stop talking. Shut your mouths. What's the question coming up for next week?
Have you ever? It goes in line with today's discussion on prospecting. It's have you ever Googled someone to find out more information about them? And the choices are, yep, I'm a creeper, and nope, but I am a liar.
Yeah, I guess that means anything, any Googling of anyone ever.
Obviously, celebrities are excluded, but yeah, like if you meet someone and you're like, I'd like to know more about that person.
Their deal is?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that what the internet's for?
I think so. I think it's explicitly what the internet is for.
Yeah.
And it also serves as a good ground for a substitute for talking while you're outside.
It is nice to not have to talk outside. You can just look at your phone. Just look down. Just don't start a conversation. If someone's looking at their phone, don't try and start a conversation with them.
That's right. And that's what the internet's for, is avoiding talking and creeping on people.
You don't have to talk to people. You can just creep on them on the internet.
That's right. 100% right.
What a technological paradise that we live in. Speaking of creeping on people on the internet, that's actually the perfect segue to the topic of the day, which is prospecting. So maybe just give like a 10,000-foot overview of what prospecting is in relation to the biz dev process, and maybe more specifically the tech biz dev process.
Yeah, sure. So it involves like this pan, and you put dirt in this pan, and you shift it back and forth, and you look for like these little flecks of gold.
Do you have to grow a big like grizzly man beard before you do that?
You do. You need those waterproof overalls, because that water gets chilly.
It does. It does. I can account for that. Yeah.
And you need a pickaxe and to travel back in time about 150
and a good whistle and like a big hat.
Yeah, and then you're literally all set. You're all set.
There's a great speaking of gold prospecting, this is a total aside, but there's a great vignette in The Ballad of Buster Scruggs where Tom Waits is a prospector, and it's just glorious watching Tom Waits prospect gold.
That is the best side story.
Yeah,
in that whole,
it's fantastic.
That's great. I really do like that one, and how he survives getting shot in the back.
It's great. So that's going to do it for today's episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream.
Yep. Hope you enjoyed
that little history lesson about how to prospect. But what about biz dev prospecting? Probably less exciting than prospecting for gold in 1860s California.
It can be. It can be. And it is a lot like it is a very similar process. So like marketing and networking, which we've talked about. Well, we talked about marketing. We haven't really, we haven't done really networking, but marketing and networking have the same goal in the fact that they're all about accumulation. They're all about like kind of like accumulating that dirt and with the possibility of gold in it. So that basically, if you think of marketing and networking as that accumulation phase, that's like piling all the dirt in the pan. And the prospecting part of it is actually sifting through all that dirt to find out if there's any gold in them hills. So, so basically, if
there's a snake in your boot,
that's right. So marketing and networking is all about accumulation, and then prospecting is all about organization and shifting, finding if there's anything good in that mountain of dirt you've accumulated, and putting it in the right place. Because not all prospects will be similar, especially, well, in some companies they will be. In companies like ours, they're not. We have different types of prospects depending on, what we're going after. We have entrepreneurs, we have CEOs of small to mid-sized businesses. We have prime contractors. We have a number of types of prospects. So it's not only sifting through the dirt to find a prospect, it's sifting through the dirt to find a prospect and then putting that prospect in the right bucket.
And how do you determine which bucket to put it in? I mean, what are the criteria? What are the primary criteria that you're going to use during this whole process?
Yeah. So again, or if you're going to put it in a bucket at all, or if you're just going to throw it back into the water kind of thing. And so
in the creek, back in the creek.
That's right. Back in the creek. Which, by the way, that was going back to the Ballad of Buster Scruggs. That was very interesting how he low tech marked where to kind of dig next.
It's a fascinating process. Apparently, that's how they used to do it, which is incredible.
Yep.
Determining where do they call it lode, like the LODE, for where the gold was in the rock? Because he was looking in the creek for where the gold appeared, and then like narrowing it down to like one small little section of this rock that was up on a hill where the gold possibly came from, and then diving in there and trying to find it.
Yeah, he like created, which is, I bring this up because it's kind of the same thing.
I was just going to say, it's actually relevant to what we're talking about.
Yeah, and so what he would do is he would drive it, he would put a stake in one area where, and then he would go way to the right and see if there was any load in the water down there. And if there was no load in the water down there, he was trying to figure out where the load ended, right? So he would place another stake further down. And then once he had the start and end, he would start going up out of the creek toward the mountain. And then again, creating like a little funnel as he went up, staking the outside boundaries of where he was finding anything and where he wasn't. And
to find the mother lode. Is that what a mother lode is? Is like the source of like smaller lodes in the ground of gold? I wonder.
What is
if anyone watching knows, comment on any of Periscope, Facebook, YouTube, and tell us if that's what mother lode is.
Your vein. It's the principal vein / source of.
So that actually is what. So the mother lode of all prospecting in terms of gold is where it's the source of the gold, right, and then their hills,
right, exactly. And so again,
so what would be the analogous mother lode for prospecting?
Well, it's again, you're basically trying to figure out what your parameters are for success. So again, it depends on what type of prospecting you're doing. Like if you're doing kind of cold calling, you know, you don't just call everyone in the phone book. You limit it to certain attributes and you call those people. So you're trying to figure out which attributes have the highest level of success. So for example, to take a really simple example, if like no 25-year-olds ever are a success for your cold calling campaign, well, you stop you move the stake in a little bit. Yeah, exactly. Because you don't want to go after 25-year-olds anymore. So you're creating that kind of that funnel to that mother load, which is the bucket of attributes that leads to as many successful prospecting clients as possible.
Which might end up being like 45 to 55, semi-retired, worked in X industry.
Exactly.
I guess it really gets back to the importance of data analytics, making sure that you're tracking stuff, making sure that you're keeping tabs on what's successful, what leads hit, what leads don't, what makes leads convert, what doesn't. So what sort of tracking tools are good to use in terms of prospecting? What kind of stuff should you track and how should you track it?
Yeah, so that's where CRM comes in big time, because like you really, prospecting starts once you start putting people into CRM. So we have a process where whenever someone comes in, we put it into a bucket called unsorted. I don't know why I said it.
Unsorted.
Unsorted. And so basically that's that pan, right? The unsorted bucket is that pan. And then we go through that unsorted bucket and we start doing research on the people that are in that bucket to determine, do we throw them out? Do we move them to a prospecting bucket? Do we move them to a prospecting bucket like entrepreneurs or small mid-sized businesses? Or do we decide, well, they're not useless, we don't want to throw them out, but they're not potential clients. In that case, we put them into a networking bucket to try to follow up with them and get closer to an actual prospect. That's the process for all this. And then again, the actual tools are like Google searches, Facebook, LinkedIn, to try to understand who this person is, what they do for a living, and whether they can help us or not, kind of thing, and vice versa, and if we can actually help them.
In terms of, I guess, moving people into that prospecting bucket, what sort of numbers are you looking at there in terms of what's a good percentage to shoot for?
A good percentage of the people you put into the unsorted bucket, like a good percentage that aren't throwback. Yeah.
What are some numbers, and in terms of conversion too? Because I know a lot of this is sort of like the meat and potatoes of biz dev. So the numbers are going to be wildly different for different companies, I guess, depending on how successful they are with biz dev. But are there any sort of standard metrics to shoot for? If you're not converting, say, 2% of prospects into paying customers, then you're doing something wrong, or 10% or 25%. What's sort of a good goal number for someone starting out with this prospecting process?
Well, the thing is, any percent is good when you're first starting out. That's the whole thing, is any percent's good. And then you start working on, because the thing is, if you set a percentage, you have to know you have to be able to know if you're actually converting on that percentage. And the reason that I say that any percentage is good is because, for example, we talked about earlier that marketing and networking is the process of getting these people into the unsorted bucket. That is what marketing and networking is about. Networking, you're a lot closer to the person, so it's a very good chance that they're going to be actual prospects. Whereas marketing, you're not hands-on with this person. You haven't met with them face to face, so you're probably going to get a lot more duds in the case of marketing. Even if you have a great marketing funnel, you'll probably still get some duds that end up in there somehow. So the point being is, like, you set a percentage, whatever it is, 1%. I want to convert 1% of the people who go into unsorted to a paying customer or client at some point. That's fine. But then when you have to be able to know for certain what your percentage is. And if you're not getting to 1%, then you need to say why. Why am I not getting to 1%? Because you should shoot low to start off. And then when you are getting to 1%, you set a new goal and talk about, how do I get to 2%, and you keep moving that goal up. You never want to remain stagnant because you want to get better at something. What is like an industry standard? I don't think there is one, because it really depends on, you know, are you a service? Are you a product? Like if you're a yacht dealership,
right,
you convert like 0.2%, you're doing just fine, man.
Yep.
But if you're like, you know, if you're selling churros out of a food truck, 0.2% isn't good.
The dream.
Right,
the dream.
right.
Oh my gosh, we need to start a churro truck.
So
I could live on churros. I guess in terms of nurturing the relationships with prospecting, what are some of the, you talked about doing research, you talked about, I mean, the question of the week this week is about stalking people online. What sort of information is valuable to have in terms of building rapport with a prospect?
Well, so again, the once you may never actually even you'll contact a prospect for sure. But the most important thing is to actually know things about the prospect. Oh my gosh, I don't know why I am sorry. I just got I got 4 phone calls.
You're blowing up.
And they all rang through to my computer, even though I have my phone disconnected from my computer, so I don't know what's going on. Anyway, so when you first, you want to avoid, if possible, contacting a prospect cold, knowing nothing about them.
Yeah.
So that is the biggest thing. That's where this research comes in, is not only to eliminate them or sort them, but to actually know something about them. Because then at that point, when you actually reach out to them, that's kind of when the prospecting phase stops and sales starts. So like that first time you make positive contact with a prospect, when you're initiating it, that's when the sales process starts. So kind of to end that prospecting phase into a successful sales phase, you want to have done a lot of research so you can basically talk to the person. And you don't want to be like, so I saw you were an ATO at UF kind of thing. Like they'd be like, yeah, that's kind of weird that you know that. But you want to know that. You want to know that so you can kind of work the conversation that way to arrive at commonalities. Oh, where'd you go to school? University of Florida. Like what I'm saying is, if you know they're a big Gator fan, they're going to want to talk about the Gators. And so if you are a big Gator fan, you move the conversation toward like where you went to school. You know where you went to school, but you just want to use that as an opening to a conversation, talk about how awesome the Gators are or whatever like that. So you want to be able to know something about this person, so it's not just this awkward phone call where you're just talking business. You want to get to know them. And in order to do that, you have to break the ice somehow. And unless you just are the world's best joke teller, you need to know. And even then, you need to know your audience and what jokes you can and can't tell. So you want to know the person, at least on a background level, so you can have a meaningful conversation to get down to business.
Well, sales is our topic for next week. Can you talk about the transition from prospecting to sales, sort of what the steps are there, when you determine that a prospect is ready to be piped into the sales funnel, that kind of stuff? Yeah.
So once we move them from unsorted to a prospecting bucket, that is at the point where we tag them with either a lead or an opportunity. And so a lead, and again, I know we'll talk about this more, but so like a lead is basically saying, I'm not eliminating this person. I'm putting them in this bucket. And so they passed our screening. So I'm marking him with a lead, meaning we need to get on this to see if there's actually something here with this person, which is the most commonly the case with marketing prospects. Prospects that come from marketing that you haven't talked to yet, they're going to be more likely to be tagged with a lead. The people, when you're prospecting, people who came from like networking, who came to the unsorted bucket through networking, generally, you know something about this person, and you've probably even had conversations about potential opportunities. So at that point, you don't need to tag them with a lead. When you put them in the bucket, you put them in the bucket and tag them with the opportunity that you guys have discussed. Now, at this point, the opportunity may be pretty vague and it needs to be kind of defined and firmed up. But one of those two things will always happen when the prospect is put in the prospecting bucket. They'll be tagged with a lead or they'll be tagged with an opportunity.
And in terms of prospecting, is it really like prospecting for gold, where the name of the game is just going through dozens or hundreds or thousands of pans of dirt to look for that gold? I mean, is it basically just a numbers game? You want as many potential leads and opportunities as you possibly can, just because you're not going to convert even, you know, a couple percentage points of them.
Right. It's very much, we should have played the Buster Scruggs, that scene from it, because it's very much like that. It's like a grind. It's just like a grind. Yep. And again, like you can be intelligent about it. So like, again, if you're networking, right, and you go to the same bar every week and you get 0 prospects from that bar, stop going to that bar.
Put a stake in that bar.
Right. Put a stake in that bar. So it is a grind, but it also, you can be intelligent about it as well. But it is a numbers game. It is a numbers game. And some numbers are better than others, but it really is just a matter of grinding it out and just getting out there. And this is why, it kind of reminds me of that old expression that detectives use: get off your ass and go knock on doors, like to solve a crime. Right. It's very much like that. It's just like, you just get out there and do it. But the only caveat is that you have to have a process backing it. Because if you just get out there and you're just knocking on doors or you know, going to bars or whatever, and you're just sifting through all these numbers, then you don't know if you're being successful or not. You have no idea if you're being successful or not. And you don't even know if you're doing it the best way. So have a process in mind and follow that process until you learn a better process. And again, talk to people about how they do it. I mean, I did that. I talked to a lot of people about how they prospect, and everyone does it differently. And again, there is a little bit of innate ability that comes with it, because again, prospecting is a little bit different than sales, right? We talked about a lot of like background research going. It's ability to research. It's the ability to kind of meet people. It's like that bridge between. It's like the bridge between marketing and sales. But in order to be successful, you have to know a little bit how to do marketing, networking, and you have to do a little bit of sales also. So it's not dedicated, but that prospecting area between those two things forms that bridge that you have to have a good idea what's on either side of the bridge, even though your main job is going to be in the center of that bridge.
So really, it's like you have to have a sense of, you have to have an ability to work with people, to actually, you know, sit down and have a conversation with someone, but you also have to have the ability to discern what, if any, opportunities there potentially are going to be. I mean, it might just be that somebody's a total huckster, and you can tell right away that there's no future there, right?
Right, exactly. And again, hopefully you can do that. If you're really good, you can do that before you meet with them. So, you know, we did this. We were checking companies' annual revenue and their competitors. And so, you know, if their annual revenue is $100 a year, like, we don't want to do business with them. No offense, guys, but like, if your competitors are doing $100,000 a year in revenue and you're doing $100 a year in revenue, like, that's probably not a business we really want to work with. You know what I mean? So it's about being able to do that research. And again, in small companies like ours, so one person will be responsible for networking, prospecting, and sales, for example. But in large companies, it's someone different potentially who's doing the networking, the prospecting, and the sales, which is why that CRM we keep talking about, which is a tool to track all this, it becomes vitally important, because when the person who networks the prospect in, they have to leave enough information about the person who's going to do prospecting, so the prospector can do all the background research and get all the heavy details about this person, and then assign it to the salesperson, who needs to be able to know all the information that both the networking guy and the prospecting guy picked up about this contact.
So the leads aren't weak.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, CRMs are of tantamount importance, not even for small companies like ours, but I mean, they're even more important. I mean, there's dozens of people working in marketing, prospecting, sales for a lot of these companies. So like keeping track of all that stuff is a nightmare without some sort of tool. And I don't know if we want to give a shout out to our CRM, the CRM that we use.
Oh yeah, we like ours. Plug. It's called Less Annoying CRM, and it's true. It's very simple.
It really is less annoying.
Yeah,
it's not just a clever name.
And we've demoed a lot of them, and we've used a lot of CRMs, and some of them are just like a waking nightmare. But again, it's tough to develop software that is supposed to work for every business. And that's what kind of like Salesforce and the other big CRMs do. They try to build a CRM that works for every single business, where Less Annoying is more like, we want to build a CRM that works for like small to mid-sized companies. And it doesn't provide anything except for what you need. And so basically it has the very minimal type, like we talked about opportunities and leads. They don't even have that necessarily built in. You have to define that and what those mean for your company.
Which you talked about before. I mean, it's so nebulous what these terms mean. And
right.
The same term can mean different things to different companies. So it's probably the best way to do it, honestly.
Yep, absolutely. And that's why it kind of fits our model of kind of pick your own terms sort of thing.
Yeah. And I guess just to conclude, to rope back to something you were talking about before, and it really is interesting because it's sort of we talked about this offline a number of times in the recent past. Like the two most important things are, one, to actually do something, and then two, to do it intelligently.
Right. Yep. 100%.
Like 100%. Those are the biggest factors of success. And I would say those are the biggest factors of success with the entire biz dev process and prospecting in particular. So
yeah, it really is. And not to diminish that, but it's kind of like that for anything. I mean, we the other end of the coin is product development. And for product development, like if you want to get good at coding, if you want to get good at software development, like basically say what you want to build, say it out loud, write it down, and then go bust your ass until you figure out how to build it.
Yeah. Step one is write a ton of code. Step two is learn how to write that code better.
Exactly. And so like people set off and they're like, I'm going to learn how to code, which is kind of like saying I'm going to go do biz dev without saying first what success looks like. So success in product development is your idea. Like if you build your idea, that's success. So you say what your idea is. And if you're a neophyte, you want it to be a very pretty simple idea. Then you just bust your butt until you figure out how to build that idea. And then you keep getting better at it. Biz dev is the same thing. We're going to convert 1% of the prospects into paying clients. And then you bust your ass to make that happen.
That's a good point to leave it. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream. Make sure to catch us next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for the next episode. Hop on our Facebook page and enter the Country Store giveaway. Country Store is the lifestyle brand for anyone who loves the outdoors. You can visit them at countrystore.outfitters.com. And while you're on our Facebook page, go ahead and answer our question of the week for this next week, which is, remind them, Cody, what that is.
Oh yeah, I gotta get the terminology right. Have you ever Googled someone you know to find out more information about them? And the answer is yep, I'm a creeper, or nope, but I am a liar.
So hop on our Facebook page and answer that question. You can check out our ebooks on Amazon, iBooks, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, and anywhere else ebooks are sold. The podcast for this episode will be up on iTunes. The blog will be up at gunnertech.com. That's going to do it for this week's episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream. Make sure to catch us next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Derry. That's Cody. We'll see you next week.